come to the right spot. It's another edition of Lewis at Large. 60 minutes of smart talk radio is in your future with guests from all walks of life and all points of view. And now with this week's edition of Lewis at Large, here's your host, Warner Lewis.
Welcome, everybody, to this segment of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis, of course, from the flight deck. And that means, of course, more, if it's possible, even more smart talk radios in your future. In this segment, no exception. We're going to be talking a good one here. We're going to be talking about companies and people. Yes, in fact, companies are made up of people from time to time. And with a guy that knows his stuff, his name's Dr. David Vik. If you're not familiar with his work, I will give you a brief introduction. He is currently the founder and CEO of the Culture King, which he promotes his vision to empower people and companies. Maybe just as importantly for this interview, he was also held the role of culture coach at Zappos.com, where he helped drive the culture there. Zappos, of course, receiving worldwide attention for their culture, featured on 60 Minutes, Dateline, et cetera, et cetera. He has founded and directed some of the most successful chiropractic clients in the United States as well. He is all about culture. He's all about people. He's the one and only Dr. David Vik. How are you, my friend?
Beautiful, Warner. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, we are happy to have you here. We don't do a lot of business speak on this show, but this is, I think, what your message is to not only corporate America, but businesses all across the country in empowering people and companies really transcends the boundaries of private enterprise and may speak to lots of different organizations. Tell us, before we get too deep here, tell us a little bit more, Dr. Vik, about your background and why this is so important to you, this idea of people and culture.
Okay, well, one of the big things is the average S&P company 50 years ago, the lifespan was 50 years. And today it's 25 years and it's shrinking. And so basically companies are dying out a lot quicker than they used to. And that's because companies in the past, or the companies now they're in the future, they got to be customer-centric and employee-centric and not company-centric like in the past. We've all been hammered by the economic downturn for well over a past decade, and people don't want what they got before, where they work 40 years and get their retirement taken away and their house underwater and all that stuff. They want to join the team or a company that has a great vision and a great purpose, and so what they do, matters in their life.
What, and again, you've worked for, some people might think, well, okay, he's worked for some chiropractors. What's that have to do with Zappos? And what does that have to do with anything here? Make that connection for him.
Well, I tell you what, I had one of the most successful chiropractic clinics in the United States, and I helped a lot of other health professionals. And when you're in a service business, it's really hard to differentiate yourself. And so what I did is put service back in the delivery in everything that we did. So that's how I had attracted tons of employees over the years and attracted tons of customers, and that's why it was super, super successful, because we put the employees first and they put the customers first.
What about, let's share with our Lewis at Large listeners, we talked about Zappos. We assume they know, but let's don't. Tell us about Zappos and tell us the mission of the company.
Okay, well, they didn't have a mission, but they had a vision, and the vision started out as deliver wow. And what I did is I came there and I was a coach of Zappos, and what I did is I delivered wow to the employees first off. We did goal setting. I met with them, everybody one-on-one for at least a half hour to get their deal. We had a mindset of winning. We had a bunch of stuff going on internally to take the employees to the next level in their personal lives. And when that happened, they actually took the company with them.
You began
and delivered the wow to the customers. And now it's delivering happiness, which is the same great vision, and it has a great purpose. You're delivering happiness.
You started your career as a night manager at Taco Bell in Palo Alto, so you were you were developing high-tech tacos a long time ago. Question for you. In your opinion, do you subscribe that people don't leave companies, they leave leaders? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yep.
What about with that as a backdrop then? Anybody, as far as anyone you've met so far, wake up thinking they want to go to work doing a bad job?
No, they all want to be empowered personally, and they all wake up in the morning and set their alarms and rearrange, babysitters and appointments and dentists and doctor visits and so forth to come to work. And so many times they're not treated like they matter.
What is right now we are undoubtedly because you work with a lot of different companies, but you are seeing companies in transition probably still from a manufacturing era to one of an information age. And I'm curious to see those companies that are ahead of the game. Why are they ahead versus those that are lagging behind?
Well, what they're doing is they're putting the customer and the employee first. They're the biggest asset in the industrial age was the machines. People were expendable. But now in the information age, the people are the biggest assets. And unless you empower the people and treat them right, give them a great purpose, they're going to leave and go somewhere else that does. And so you really have to go ahead and attract great employees that are in line with the vision and purpose of the company. And in doing so, everybody's going to have the common mindset and so forth of the company, and it's going to spill over to the customers. And then the business is going to be a success.
If you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis, here from the Flight Deck of Lewis at Large Radio, talking to Dr. David Vik, American corporate culture expert, advisor extraordinaire, a long career, helping companies kind of move into an information age and move into an age where work and the mindset of the employees are relevant and aligned one-on-one. What, in general, let's take this outside, if we could, the world of private business. Let's take it to a public school system, or let's take it to a public works administration in a community somewhere, or any organization. What are some of the questions that organizations should be asking themselves if they feel like things just aren't all in sync?
Right. Culture's squishy. You see a lot of cool companies out there. They say, hey, look at the culture, and they have disco balls and beanbag chairs, and those are really cool things. But what I would suggest, and it's in the book, that they have a structure to their culture. And the structure of the culture is basically 5 things. Number 1 is the vision. It's what you're doing. That has to be very, very clear. And number 2 is purpose. That's why you do it. Number 3 is a business model, and that's what's going to fuel you. And number 4 is the unique or wow factors. That's what will separate you from the rest or the competition. And number 5 are the values, and you're telling the world what you value. And if you lay out the structure and have a compelling vision, purpose, good business model, really great unique or wow factors, and the values, it'll attract people of like minds, and then all the hearts are going to beat in one direction, and they're going to deliver and recreate and invent exactly what the customers want. So the structure of your company or the culture is really the main thing that you have to go ahead and let people know. It's like, what are you doing and why are you doing it?
Are you finding that your work, is it easier, so to speak, to work with newer companies or work with the ones that have been around the block a little bit?
Well, it all has to come from the top, and what I've found is some companies have been around for a long time. They're ready for a change, and when they're ready, they're ready. And even some new companies, they don't know what they don't know, so some of them are resistant to creating a structure in their company. But all in all, whether it's a huge company or small startups, when someone's ready and wants to dance, it's full steam ahead.
What about companies' recognition that their employees are their first line of customers? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
How does is that tough to get certain groups of managers to understand that, or is that a pretty easy premise these days?
No, it's Sometimes the people in management, if they're company-centric, it's all about, hey, how much can we make? How much can we get off this sale? All that kind of stuff, where if you just take care of the person, you're going to have them for a lifetime. But a lot of times they're like short-sighted, so they're just all out for the dollar. And when that happens, the company's going to go down because the person who's buying from them or working at that company is going to go somewhere else that treats them like they matter.
Is it, what about also, does it matter, in your experience, the companies and the organizations that you're working with? Does it matter? Are there unique challenges, businesses that are family owned versus those that might be publicly held versus those that are, say, just retail organizations?
No, well, I tell you what, I have consulted with a lot of family owned companies, and again, if they feel the pain, they're going to want to change. But sometimes I've talked to a lot of third and fourth generation companies, and it's really hard to change the ship because their thinking and their thought process is about how to make money. And it's really hard to change when it's ingrained in the culture and the DNA and the fabric of the people that live in the company.
Right. Dad started the company. My job is to make sure it doesn't fail. I'll reap the benefits and to heck with everything else. Right.
And, when Dad was around, maybe that company was the only one within 200 miles, so they could do whatever they want to the employees, and they could do whatever they want to the customers because there's always more people and there was no competition. But in the information age, you can shop worldwide. You're not, saddled down to your location or anything anymore. So a lot of these companies that have been around for a long time have to really understand that they're not the only gal in the Alaska bar anymore.
All of us have heard this term, the wow factor, especially in the last 4 to 5 years, maybe even 10 years for that matter. Give us some companies that deliver, in your opinion, at the customer level, at the outside customer level, a wow factor, and give us some examples in different categories of ones that do it really well, and specifically why.
Okay, first of all, let me explain the wow factor. A unique factor is something that separates you from the rest. But a wow factor is basically, it'll spark an emotion. When you deal with a company, you kind of go, wow. And so when you have that, it sparks an emotion, and it'll create an emotional connection with a memory. And people will program themselves to keep going back to a great emotional connection. And again, they'll stay away from a real bad emotional connection where someone's treating them poorly. So over time, you can really get some benefits if you create a wow factor. Zappos has a wow factor. Free shipping, free return. You get the box the next day. They're really, really cool on creating the wow factor. There's other companies, let's say a restaurant that has people lined up out the door. They are creating a wow factor because their people are lining up out the door. It could be a signature dish. It could be prices. It could be whatever they're doing. They're doing it right. They're creating an emotional connection that have people keep coming back. If you look at, I guess really what you want to do is take a look at any company that provides certainty and really evokes an emotional connection from you. So what company, Warner, do you really, really like?
Boy, right this minute, quite frankly, a little Dairy Queen would sound pretty good. That doesn't take much right this minute. We're actually in the middle of a storm here too, so it's not taking much today. But no, I understand completely what you're talking about. Another question I have for you is, do you find that the companies that are more responsive and more willing to respond are necessarily in the more competitive businesses, or sometimes is it the outlier businesses and business categories that take the lead?
It's from soup to nuts, Warner. It's everybody. Whether they stand out in their business or they're an outlier, if they really, really want to get their company moving, they should get the culture secret and read it, and then implement the structure of the culture within their company. But it's all across the board.
You have to, and again, we got a good one rolling here. We're talking to Dr. David Vik, corporate. You're not a corporate psychologist, but you probably feel like one a lot of times. Works with companies across the country and developing ways to empower people, the very people that work for those companies, to make your experience as a consumer or a user of those goods and services even better. I'm curious as to, are you seeing across the country necessarily, and again, sometimes I'm trying to see if there are any differences in the work that you do between companies in large cities versus smaller communities, east of the Rockies, west of the Rockies, or is a company, and then ultimately we're all just people?
Yep. A company's a company. I've been talking to companies in New York and Las Vegas. I've talked with landscaping companies, MRI imaging companies. They have different centers they want to expand. Recruiting companies, retail companies, internet companies. It's all over the board. We're all smack dab in the information age, and some people have it, a hard time making the shift into the information age and go ahead and have their company, just rocket to success. It
almost seems inherent, having done a little marketing work on my own in my career, that culture and brand, culture and company reputation, culture and the sort of affinity towards a company or against it go hand in hand. What happens inside those walls undoubtedly leaks outside.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely totally right, Warner. It's whatever's done in the inside of the company will be reflected in your brand. But, some companies, you probably know somebody personally that's not too nice and tries always to make everything about him and doesn't pay for stuff and all that kind of stuff, but he wants to be known as a great giving guy. But that's not going to happen because what he does as a person is not what the people are going to see, so they can't label that. So the same with the company. If you have a culture that's company-centric, but you want to be known and loved by the customers, it's just not going to happen.
Well, in the work, The Culture Secret, how to empower people and companies no matter what you sell, I'm curious as to what you learned from this time you began writing it to the time the work was done. Did any of your opinions about anything change?
No, I got a lot more granular when I articulated things the way they should be articulated, but it just kind of became really, really, really clear on what companies need to do in order to survive nowadays and actually thrive nowadays. And so all in all, everything just became more and more clear.
Well, it is a fascinating work because it's never going to end, is it? There's going to be Culture Secret number 2, 3, and 4. I can feel it.
I love it, Warner. Well, you're a pro. Thank you.
I've one more thing before we kind of begin to wrap up here. What's kind of I don't mean to be too philosophical here, but just in general, if I'm running a nonprofit, if I'm running a private business, if I'm running just a volunteer organization of some kind, what's the lesson here? What's the big headline out of The Culture Secret?
The big headline is, number one, the vision and purpose. What are you doing and why are you doing it? I mean, if you have something super compelling, the vision and the reason you're doing it or the purpose that's very compelling, heck, people even donate time and money to charities. But it has to be something bigger than themselves. It has to be something that people fall in love with and will follow and give their time and money to.
Well, again, the work, The Culture Secret, how to empower people and companies no matter what you sell. Dr. David Vik, it is available via the Greenleaf Book Group Press. Dr. Vik, how can people get a copy here and find out a little bit more about the consulting and the other work you do?
Perfect. Yeah, they can go to theculturesecret.com and take a look at the site. We have some videos that we're putting up little by little, and it'll give you some free resources. And you can buy the book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Hudson Book Group at the airports, just about anywhere you can buy a book.
Well, appreciate your time. Best of luck, and I'm thumbs up to you. America needs, well, all business needs, all organizations need more of this as they kind of work their way through and evolve out on the other side, so to speak, and present a better product and better service to customers across the country. And thank you so much for the work you do.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Warner, for getting it out there. I really appreciate you. You've been a true professional.
Well, I appreciate that as well. We will be back with more on the highly branded Lewis at Large.